Annie had an earache on a Saturday of all days. So her mom brought her to Minute Clinic at CVS, where you can see a provider, fill a prescription, and grab essentials like pain relief products, all in one visit. Even on evenings and weekends. You can even see us online with telehealth options. For quality, affordable care on your schedule, visit Minute Clinic at CVS. That's healthier made easier. Services vary by location. See minuteclinic.com for details.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 231, and this week I am pleased to be joined by a returning guest. Hello, Harley.
Hey, John, how are you going?
Pretty good. It's one of these, like, whenever Rich and Joe start the flagship out sometimes, and they're like, let me ask you how you're doing, like we didn't just talk for 20 minutes. That's just what happened here. It's not every week on Omakase when, like, I have that long of a chat with the guest before we start, but it was this week, so it's like, how you doing? We've already been talking for 20 minutes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm interested to hear what you have to say for the first time.
But yeah, I just got home from a lovely vacation in Western New York, which was even more lovely considering it was a last-minute replacement for another vacation in Reno/Tahoe that I could not go on because Lake Tahoe is unfortunately on fire. Actually, I haven't been checking the updates. I don't know if it's still on fire or not. Like, once you decide to move the trip, it's really not as pressing to check in with. I mean, I hope it's not on fire anymore, but I really haven't been checking it every day like I was leading up to the decision to cancel. But yeah, those wildfires are pretty bad. And I was like, it's one of those things where it's like, once you get to a certain point when the wildfires are still going, it got to a point where it's like, even if they're technically out before we go, it just felt vaguely like disrespectful to show up there and be like, hey, I'm here to vacation, here to use this private beach at this resort, and please serve me and my girlfriend, and please give us all the drink. It just felt very, very disrespectful. They may have just gotten back to their homes. Like, I did not want to be the first person to come use it as a resort again. It just felt, I'll let somebody else do that.
No, it's not great optics to do things like that. No, not at all.
Yeah, I did not want to do that.
Hey, but a holiday's a holiday, John.
Yeah, it was good, though. I mean, the Western New York, it wasn't quite my first time there because I went there all the way back in 2005. I think I told the story already, but I went there in 2005 to see Shima and Shingo Takagi on the Ring of Honor show there. Little did I know I would see them both about 1 million times more after that, but at the time it felt like, they're bringing Shima and Shingo. I have to go all the way to Buffalo for this. But it was, I've seen them both, 10 times now probably. But so that was my first time there, but I really didn't see anything of the area. Like, it was pretty much just drive up, hang out with some other wrestling fans, go to the show, drive back. We did go to Duff's, which I did again this time. Duff's is like, it wasn't the place that invented the buffalo wing. That's called a different place called Anchor Bar. We also went there on this trip, although didn't get the wings. But Duff's is like considered, what like a lot of people consider to be the best. Now it's kind of touristy, so people will say it's not actually the best. But for a while, like people consider it to be the best. And we went up there to the original Duff's on this trip too, as well, just to see how it held up 15 years later. I don't know if it held up as much as it was fine, but it wasn't like I remembered it from 15 years ago. So it may have been a leave the memories alone situation. But yeah, that was about the only thing I did, 15 years ago. This time, obviously, did a lot more stuff. If people follow me on Twitter, they probably already saw a lot of it. Went to Niagara Falls for 2 days. Went over to the Canadian side too on Tuesday, which obviously is they just reopened American Canadian travel, and if like for tourists, I mean, and if there's any indication, actually I can't tell this. So coming back from Canada, I could not tell if the American Border Patrol agent was being rude to us because he was like, "Oh, look at these two fuckers feeling like they gotta go cross the fucking border during the middle of all this shit," or if he's just an asshole because pretty much all American border agents I've ever encountered are complete assholes. I really couldn't tell. I think it could just be the latter, but so like going into Canada, the Border Patrol agent was very nice. She was like, what are you guys coming for? It was just like, oh, we just want to see the falls from the Canadian side. And she was very apologetic that we got picked for this randomized COVID testing because we wouldn't even get the results until we're back in America. But I guess the idea is if you come over the border, you have to be vaccinated and you have to have a negative test already, which we have both of those things already. But like this way, if you come over, they give you this test and you would get the results back in a day or two. And theoretically, if you're still in the country, then you would quarantine, or by law, I think you have to quarantine if it was positive. And, she was just like, oh, but you're going back. We're telling her we're going to go back to America today. We're just driving in and then driving out. And, she was like, okay, well, you're not even gonna have these results before you're back in your own country. But, it was still good to know I didn't have COVID, I guess. But
that's always a plus.
Did get the results a couple of days later. But yeah, the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, it wasn't what I was expecting at all, really. It was like extremely touristy, I guess. Like there's this one stretch that's basically, I don't know what it looks like, a carnival or something. Like it has, like a hall of mirrors and a haunted house and just a ton of every like family and chain restaurant you can ever think of. And it's like, it's very strange. Like it wasn't all, I did not know they had this, because the American side of Niagara Falls is very, like people always say the Canadian side is better. And the view of the main falls from the Canadian side is definitely better. But you can get up closer to it on the American side, which is kind of cool. But the actual view on the Canadian side is better. But like, other than the view, I think I prefer the more understated American side to the, you could see understated as in like not very built up or whatever. But the Canadian side just kind of felt like a weird tourist trap. It's like, oh, here's miniature golf, here's go-karts, here's like I said, a house of mirrors. It was very strange, very jarring. Not what I was expecting, but
right. Because in obviously I've never been to Niagara Falls, but when you watch television and they were scenes are set there, you only ever really see the fall. You don't like. So I have no idea what is actually there other than the waterfall.
I was picturing more like just a state park, which is what the American side pretty much is like. It's just like a little park. The Canadian side is like, oh, you're in the middle of a real tourist trap here, and it was very strange. But yeah.
Now you're making me want to go to that one too. just to see it.
It is really weird. But yeah, there's a specific term for that street at something hill. I don't remember what the first word is called, but it's like one specific street that's just like the big tourist trap part of it. But other than that, it was cool though. The like there's different things you can do where you go on each side, where like you can get a boat ride that takes you right up through the mist and gets you very wet of the falls, and you can stand under the baby falls on the American side. I think it's called Bridal Veil Falls, the smallest one, and which I did. I took a little video of that, and I to give a shout out to Voice of Wrestling's Paul Vosch for making the funniest joke about it, where he was like, "Now you're ready to face Okada at New Beginning." So I just have to paint my face and body, I guess.
That's a good bit.
Yeah. But yeah, so like that, the falls are cool. I don't know what else. Like the Monday, Tuesday we're at the falls. Wednesday, Thursday we drove to Allegheny State Park, which is like about an hour and a half away, and that was just like to see this giant park. With this, it had a nice little lake. It had a historic little house. Basically, I was just looking for something else we could do in the area without driving too far, because it was like I knew that there wasn't enough at Niagara Falls. I mean, some people told me Niagara Falls will last an hour. Those people, I think, undersold it. Like, I thought we had plenty to do for the 2 days, but by the time the 2 days were over, we had done pretty much everything. So I was glad that I didn't try to stretch it out to more than 2 days. So we left and went to the Allegheny, which had a nice state park, and then also had a casino called Seneca Allegheny, which was kind of cool, just because they're one of the only places left in the Northeast, at least, that still has $5 tables. So I lost all my money, but I lost it much slower than I would have. So that was nice, I guess. And then we went back to Buffalo for the last night and just kind of relaxed there before our flight. But it was a good little trip. It was the most driving I've done in probably 8 years or something. Like I don't have a car in New York City, so I was a little nervous about driving us around. Like we rented a car, got this nice little Toyota Camry, which was handled very well. Honestly, I did not know the Camry could be such a fun car to drive. But yeah, and we had but I was a little nervous about driving us all these miles. It ended up being 232 miles total. But I don't know. The moment I started doing it, I was like, oh, okay, this is, even though it's been a while, it's really not hard. It comes back to you very quickly. So I was like, it was very easy just to drive us all around. And just renting a car was much easier and a much simpler process than I thought it would be. I'd never really done it before, but now I'm just I don't know why I'd never done this before. It actually isn't super expensive, and it's actually not that complicated. I don't know. In my head, I thought it was more complicated than it was or something. So if you're like me and you've been afraid to rent a car all this time, I guess go out there and rent one. If you're in America, anyway. I don't know what it's like in anywhere else, but.
No, I've only rented a car once, and it was it was you pay the fee, you pay a bond, which you get back if you don't mess the car up, and then off you go. You just drop it off at whichever airport you're leaving in.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought it was more complicated than that. I don't know what I thought it was, but I just never did it before. So,
well, I've also rented a car in Austin too to drive to San Antonio in one of my 2 American trips. And that seemed also pretty easy, but what I found very jarring was driving on the wrong side of the road.
Oh, yeah.
I was head checking the wrong way, trying to exit a freeway was like a nightmare just because instinctually I'm driving on the right side of the road, or the left side of the road, and the exits over here are on the left, whereas the exits over where you are on the right. So I was like, I'm ready for the exit ramp, and then you sort of see it, and you're like, fuck, and you've just got to, just the real jarring sort of stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I was very happy to go to, that was my first time ever driving in a foreign country in Canada, and it's thank God they drive on the same side of the road we drive on. I don't know if I was ready. It was jarring enough just driving a car again at first, but I got into it. It was very easy once I got into it. I think I'm a pretty good driver anyway, so, I know there's some people I know, I'm not going to name names, who they don't probably listen anyway. There's some people I know who really ride their brake, and I'm in the car with this person a lot, and it can start to make me feel a little sick after a while. And it's you're supposed to ride the gas. Basically, most people listening to this, I'm sure, drive. If you don't, I don't know, whatever. But basically, you should be able to come to a nice rolling stop pretty often, or just decelerate by letting your foot off the gas. So most people don't need to hit the brake that often unless they really have to stop at the end. Or they just need a little help to stop. This is not how my friend, let's just say, drives. He just, instead of riding the gas, he rides the brake. It's brake. Just really hitting that brake over and over again. It starts to make you feel a little sick after a while. And I remember Nicole was in the car with me, and she's also been in the car with this person driving quite a bit, and she was like, "You drive so much better than they do." I was like, "Well, thank you," but it was I definitely made me miss driving a little bit, but I don't know. Like a car really is not something I even remotely need here, but it was nice to just get behind the wheel on my own, just be actually behind the wheel for once instead of having other people drive me or Uber drivers or whatever the fuck. So it was nice. Definitely kind of want to do it again sometime, but maybe I'll work in a rental car into whatever other trip we do next time. We wasted a lot of time though. I rambled on forever about my trip. Did you do anything interesting lately, Harley?
No. So in Melbourne, we're still in lockdown. Actually, I think I was in lockdown the last time I was on this show.
Did you come out of lockdown at all between?
No. So we had 6 months, and then the Delta strain came over, and one of our states with a right wing leader didn't. So what a lot of our states do is when you get a case, you lock down for 3 days, just like to flush it out. And this state didn't do that, and it sort of seeded in other places, including New Zealand. So they're still in lockdown too. We're still in lockdown, and our vaccination rollout as well is dog shit. Like our right wing prime minister turned down Pfizer and Moderna this time last year as well. He sort of just scoffed their nose at them. So yeah, we're only really just I'm getting my second dose on Friday, and that's the earliest I could have got it, right? So, but yeah, we've just sort of released a roadmap, I guess, out of lockdown. So eventually, as more and more people are double vaccinated, more restrictions will get lifted. But I'm a teacher, so this is my first day of September holiday period. So that's why I can unfortunately be on the show at 10:30 a.m. Monday.
Yeah, I have to quote go back to work tomorrow, obviously, but I'm still working from home, so at least I don't have to commute. But the first day back from vacation is always a fucking disaster. So
yeah, I hate it. I was going to give myself a buffer before I go back.
Definitely not looking forward to it. I mean, it's just like obviously between the fact that you haven't been working all this time and it's been great, and of course, your inbox is a fucking disaster because you've been gone all week. It's pretty bad. But what are you going to do? Got to get through it anyway. Speaking of things people feel like they have to get through this year, there's a lot of chatter about the G1 Climax being, what's the word, for sickos, right? I think that's definitely something I've seen. For perverts, for crazy people. During this tournament this year with the New Japan and Japan still under a lot of COVID restrictions. It is so I've ranted about this a lot, right? I think what Americans really have a problem with is it's really hard to tell, not even just Americans too, like a lot of Europeans too, because the UK I don't think is under any restrictions at all right now. It seems like a lot of people from the UK are really been really up New Japan's ass lately. And it's like, I think it's really hard for some people in America and the UK and other Western nations that have no restrictions at all, and anything related to COVID right now, to wrap their heads around this country that's still, under states of emergency. Like, they still cannot serve alcohol in Japan. I mean, it's not completely shut down the way you guys are, but like, they can't serve alcohol in restaurants. There's all these other restrictions around movement. You're not supposed to go to another prefecture, although I've heard that one isn't like severely enforced. And obviously, most importantly, you cannot cheer at shows. So I feel like, and the attendance is capped, and people are even, I think, voluntarily staying home more during the most recent surge. So I think there's been like a tendency among a certain type of Western fan to really downplay the impact that stuff is having, because it's not an experience we're living. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we're not living through that anymore. As far, people are still wearing masks here. it depends on where you are, though, in America. I mean, there are some places where they're required. There's some places where they're not required, but a lot of people still wear them, like where I live in New York. When I went to Western New York, I would say the amount of people wearing masks was probably like 25% or less. But New York City, it's still, I'd say like 75% probably or something. Like, it's still very high here. But like masking is really the only thing we're doing. Like, if we're doing that. Capacity restrictions are obviously gone. You see these videos of people like packing football stadiums and stuff. Obviously, there's never been any restriction on cheering, and we're watching not even just real sports, but wrestling on television with lots of people cheering, and everything feels pretty normal if you're here. So I think there's a tendency to be like overly dismissive about the impact those restrictions have had on Japanese wrestling. And that in turn means that you're even more like, even more hard on New Japan for what's been, a pretty rough few months. I mean, let's be honest. But it's not really being fair to the company. It's not being fair to the fact that they're operating under an entirely different set of rules than any American wrestling promotion is right now. And never mind the fact that a huge chunk of their roster does not want to go to Japan right now. Which, again, they can't do anything about that either, except, I guess, try to force them and have them even more likely to walk as soon as their contracts are over. I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, these are things that I think, Westerners right now would kind of take for granted that we don't have to deal with, that Japan still has to deal with. So I can understand why some people are really negative on New Japan right now and also are not giving them, any leeway as far as like being under these pandemic restrictions, because as far as we can tell, as far as we feel over here, the pandemic does feel pretty over. I mean, I'm not saying it should, and if you look at the amount of people who are dying every day in America, it sure as fuck really isn't over, but it feels over to people in a way that obviously it makes it hard to relate to what's going on in Japan right now. So, yes, I think that's why you saw a lot of like, oh, New Japan's for sickos. But the first 2 nights of the G1 were fucking awesome. I mean, I don't know if you disagree, but these 2 nights were really, really good. About as good as they honestly could have been, I think. So maybe people will either back off a little bit of that take that, anyone watching the G1 is a crazy person, or maybe people will be a little more into it now. I don't know. But the first 2 nights of G1 were like, these are the best 2 nights New Japan has had in probably since what? Like, I can't even think of a compare. Like
probably
since
2019, maybe.
I was gonna say since Wrestle Kingdom, but
right.
People did like Wrestle Kingdom this year.
Oh no, yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant G1.
But
yeah, no, that was. I think you're right, definitely, especially that night too. Maybe because that was just a surprise. I think night 1's undercard wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. But the top 2 certainly felt like, okay, we're in G1 now, for sure.
Oh, there's one match we're gonna definitely disagree on them, but we'll get to it. From the night 1 undercard, I'm saying.
Oh, did you think 1 was really bad?
I don't know. I thought 1 was really good.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I mean, I'm. We'll go through the star ratings, but I didn't think anything was particularly impressive. But yeah.
But yeah, I agree that night 2 was a surprise as far as like just really over delivering.
Yeah, I think that was it. That's the perfect word. It over delivered. Like how many G1, right? So just a quick spoiler. I only gave 1 for that night 2. I only had 1 notebook match. And how many nights would you gush about a G1 with only 1 notebook match? But I think because this block was so maligned, and you got 4. For me at least, 4 pretty good to very good matches and 1 pretty incredible match. That's one of the best New Japan shows I felt like I've seen in months, since probably Dominion, when I can't even remember that card except for Shingo winning.
Yeah. So definitely a good start here for the G1, that is for sure. We're going to go through everything, obviously, in nights 1 and 2. Before I do that, I just need to mention, of course, the Wrestling Omakase Patreon. We'll be covering every night of the G1 and also the Noah N-1 victory, which we're also covering on this episode. Every night of the tournament that does not get covered, on a free episode will be covered exclusively on the Patreon. The easiest way to explain it. So if you go over there right now, patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase, you pay your $5, you get everything we've done so far, which is the episode last week that covered the opening night of the Noah N-1. I did a very extensive G1 Climax preview. That you might still want to check out. It went over like an hour and 20 minutes, I think, which I recorded it before I left for vacation, but it came out this past Wednesday. Got some very positive feedback on that, so definitely check that one out. I went through every single night. I rated the card of every night, as far as like how excited I was about that card and what I thought it looked like on paper. So if you're looking to like pick and choose, that you might enjoy that preview episode still. So plus obviously you get everything else we've ever done, the Tokyo Dome series and all of that stuff. But here, the main thing obviously going forward is, a ton of nights of both tournaments will only be covered on the Patreon. So this week coming up, especially tomorrow, I'll be covering nights 3 and 4 of the Noah N-1. Thursday, I'll be covering night 3 of the G1, and Friday, I'll be covering night 4 of the G1. So all those shows will be covered only on the Patreon. Next week's episode will also be Patreon exclusive, because again, every other full episode of the show is Patreon exclusive, as you've probably noticed by now. So, even G1 Night 5 and N1 Night 5, that'll be on next week's full episode, but that again will be Patreon exclusive. So the next time you'll hear from me on a free episode won't be until Sunday, October 3rd, so 2 weeks from now, and it'll be the Noah N1 Finals and the G1 Night 9. So if you want to hear my takes on any of those other shows, every G1 show from now until Night 9, and all the M1 shows until the finals, you have to subscribe. It's only $5. It's at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. The link is also in the description, I think multiple times, if anything. So very hard to miss. But again, you get all of our daily coverage of both tournaments, every show that we don't cover on a free episode, only on the Patreon. So it's a great time to sign up. And you can always sample anything else you want from the past series I've done. For instance, if the Okada Tanahashi main event on night 2 made you want to check out the rest of their matches, I already did a series covering every single Okada Tanahashi match in order, in detail, full reviews. We go through everything else going on in their careers to give you added context of what was going on, leading into each match, which I think would, make a great audio companion if you want to go in and watch it for the first time. So that's on there too. Naito and Ishii is on there too, the same kind of thing, and Naito and Tanahashi. So those are the 3, New Japan feuds I've done, full series of. And so all that stuff is on there too. Everything else we've ever done. So definitely check it all out at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. Again, only $5 to sign up. All right, so night 1 here, the A block, Saturday, September 18th from the Edion Arena, Osaka, also known as the Osaka Prefectural Gymnasium. First off, what do you think of the theme song, Max the Max, from Jam Project?
It's not as good as that Man with a Mission song they did a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I actually thought that as a song itself, that's a pretty decent one. This is okay. It's probably around the middle.
A lot of people seem to really like it, so I'm surprised you're one of the more negative people I've heard about it.
I don't think it's not really like catchy to me. Like, I think that Wrestle Kingdom 14 theme song, as sort of as annoying as it is, that was, I was still singing that chorus afterwards. This one, I'm not going to go around the house going Max the Max.
Muscle to the max. Muscle to the max.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it because it's very Annie's song, which is what Jam Project does normally. Obviously, these are people who do songs for anime.
Oh, I really like Jam Project. I usually like them, but it doesn't. This one doesn't feel like it's an anime theme song to me, or at least an anime I would watch.
There you go. I saw them live once at Anime Boston. That was pretty cool. But just wanted to throw that out there. They were a cool little live band. I mean, they did the original Dragon Ball Z theme song, which was a really fun thing to experience live. Honestly, even though I've actually never been that big of a Dragon Ball fan. But So we got that opening. Then we had the first match of the evening, a non-tournament match. So some of these shows have non-tournament matches, and some of them don't.
It looks like that the shows that are in Tokyo, or at least in
Don't
the
have
Tokyo
them.
metropolitan area, do not have an undercard, which I think is fair enough considering they're the ones as snake bitten, pardon the pun, with the coronavirus at the moment.
Yeah. So this one was Show defeating. So obviously, all the undercard matches are just the one of the two young lions against somebody. So this one usually in like a pair. So one young lion faces a guy, and the next like
there are tag matches coming up though.
Towards the end of the tour. Yeah. So this one was Ryuhi Oiwa losing to Show and 608 with the snake bite. I should mention too, this show's attendance, by the way, was 1,963. Night
really?
2 beat it. Yeah, Night 2 beat it by a little bit.
It felt like there was more, or at least visually looked like there was more.
Night 2 was 2,188. I was gonna say, I think this must be pretty close to capacity because like the those MetLife Dome shows where the max is like 5,000, they were doing like 2,780 and 2,095. So I imagine these were pretty close to capacity. I don't know what exact. I think 50% of. Yeah, I would assume it was like 5,000. So maybe capacity is like 2,500 or something. So not bad, I guess. For Osaka has been hit plenty hard by COVID too. But anyway, so the opener here was Sho beating Oiwa in 608 with the snake bite, his new submission hold. Sho's opening video is now full of like pixelated footage, pixelated on purpose, obviously look like it's a video game, of him joining the House of Torture. I thought this looks less cool than his original Evil Gamer entrance video from his match against Yo at MetLife. I don't know, I just thought like somehow this looked way less cool than the video he had last time.
Well, it's anything House of Torture is automatically less cool.
There you go. We also have a new referee, Taito Okabayashi. I guess we will not know what this man's face looks like until whenever COVID is considered under control enough for referees not to wear masks. I shouldn't say it. They probably have his fucking face somewhere. But I just thought of that. I was like, wow, we'll never see his face in the ring for quite a while, probably. But and then Kevin Kelly also had like technical issues on the English commentary. Because I wanted to give the English commentary a chance. I haven't been listening to it in a long time because most of the time it's recorded remotely, right? So
yes,
overdub it. When there's like something missing basically. When you listen to the English commentary that's overdubbed, you can really tell it's overdubbed, and the sound mix does not sound as good, as listening to Japanese where they're there. Well, now Kevin Kelly's in Japan, I should say, and he and Chris Charlton are in the building doing the commentary. So it sounds much more natural again. That the audio mix sounds more natural. So I wanted to give them a shot. They were good. I mean, Kevin Kelly I think is almost always good, but they had like technical issues right off the bat, which I remember watching like, oh, that's a bad omen for the show. And maybe you have like skeptical English speaking fans coming back to the G1 and the first time they get is all these technical issues. But it turned out to be, the show turned out to be pretty great anyway. So not much of a problem.
You could hear Kelly and Chris on the Japanese feed.
Like, oh yeah, really?
Echoing, yeah.
You can hear the Japanese feed too, sometimes on the English feed. So Oiwa showed like a really nice drop kick at one point. He just nailed Sho right in the face before the 5-minute call. But Sho came back and tapped him out. Not too long after that. I thought it was standard Young Lion stuff here. Plus Sho got to show off, no pun intended there, some of his new heel aggression. And that made it a little watchable, while it was lasted. I went like 2 3/4. It was all right.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's just a standard Young Lion squash with a guy that's about to be pushed or is in the middle of being pushed. I didn't really star rate it, but it's like, the Young Lion system is probably the best training system in the world, right? Like, how many matches has Oiwa had now?
Like 4, I think.
4, and he's just so like he's missing the stuff that makes a good wrestler a wrestler. But in terms of executing basic moves, he's already so sound.
Yeah, so many of these other wrestlers nowadays that come up in other places definitely lack that, that soundness. And I don't even think it's a New Japan thing specifically, because like pretty much any Japanese promotion, the trainees they always have very sound fundamentals, and I just assume it's the way they train them and what they focus on early in their careers. Whereas there's so many American wrestlers obviously who never seem to learn how to do anything. I don't know. Like there's a lot of American wrestlers who are pretty recent who just cannot fucking throw a dropkick correctly. So.
Well, it might be more of an American thing to focus on your gimmick first, whereas and the wrestling is secondary. Whereas in Japan, the wrestling is you got to have the fundamentals and then grow into your gimmick.
I've been watching like Dark and Dark Elevation a little bit lately. Like the joke used to be I'd never watched these shows, but I've been curious about what they're like. And so many of the wrestlers they bring in as squash victims, who I assume are very young, very early in their careers, in both genders, male and female, they cannot run the fucking ropes. It just amazes me watching them. It's like, how did you not learn how to, like, if you think, wouldn't that be like day one shit? You never see anyone in Japan who gets through a young lion system who can't run the ropes. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And there are so many.
It's a basic back. What's fuck? I've just lost the word. But falling on your back and then running the ropes.
Yeah. Like taking a bump and running the ropes.
Yeah,
is
bump.
Big
what the
thing.
hell? How did I forget that word? Bump?
But it's like there's so many American wrestlers, young American wrestlers. I mean, they all know how to bump usually. That's fine. But there's so many of them who can't run the ropes, and there's a couple who AEW pushes. Like there was a big one who people are going to be mad at me for hating on, but and so some of the stuff she does with like judo and stuff is cool. But Tai Conti, she cannot run the fucking ropes. Like she will take 6 or 7 steps sometimes when she should obviously be taking 3. And it's just like really, really jarring to watch one of her matches and watch her just like struggle to run the ropes. I'm just like, you're not like, how has nobody pulled her? Like you have Dustin Rhodes back there and he can't pull this woman aside and say, hey, you can't run the ropes. I mean,
man, Dustin's all about good vibes and positivity now, man. He can't put that on the locker room. He's the natural.
Just be gentle. Be gentle about it, but just pull her aside and be like, I'm going to teach you how to run the ropes. Just like when Naito pulled Hiromu aside when he was really struggling and was like, I'm just going to teach you how to wrestle. I've heard, I don't know if it's the story. But yeah, he just pulled him aside one day and said, if you don't mind, I'd like to teach you how to wrestle now.
What year was that?
I think it was like right after he debuted. So I think like 2009.
Oh, right. So like pre all of this. Pre LIJ,
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, okay.
He was a Naito, a Naito disciple, I guess you would say, a Naito student, like from day one, basically. So that's pretty much just how he, Naito just kind of pulled him over at a young age. But yeah, I don't know. Like it makes me wonder like how many wrestlers we don't hear those kind of stories for, because obviously they told us that story because they put them in the same unit anyway and all that. But I wonder how many wrestlers there are like out there that like, were like Tanahashi disciples or something that we never heard about. But yeah, the point is though, like Dustin Rhodes should do that for Tai Conti or is anybody back there. I don't know, like Ruby Soho's there now. She knows how to run the ropes. Just pull her aside and be like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to run the ropes now. But I don't know. There's just something about it. So yeah, to your point. The young line system is the best way to learn pro wrestling because there's, so many comparable. I'm not trying to pick on AEW. WWE has a lot of, shitty young wrestlers too. So,
well, the difference is, John, that you don't. A sane person doesn't watch anything to do with WWE, so you wouldn't know if no one can.
I actually have watched SmackDown a bunch of weeks since it came back.
Now that's for sickos and freaks and perverts.
But I never watched NXT. I did not watch NXT 2.0 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and we did SummerSlam on this show too, which was something. But anyway, let's get to the next match, which is A Block, Yujo Takahashi defeating Kota Ibushi in 11:31 with the Big Juice. Did not realize that was his new finisher's name.
I was stunned when I heard that. Oh, when I think Joel from the Super J-Cast tweeted the screenshot of the result, I was like, big juice. Oh, this is going to be a fun 3 weeks.
Huge with the big juice. It's like,
it's good.
okay.
It's G1 baby.
Yujiro beats Ibushi 11:31 with the big juice. Match started off pretty dull. So Yujiro was choking Ibushi with his pimp stick at ringside, all that kind of nonsense. He was beating Kota down through the 5-minute call. Yujiro ends up hitting a low blow on Ibushi after he avoided the Kamigoe. He hits the pimp juice. Kota kicks out. Yujiro then hits a second implant DDT, which is the big juice, and that gets the pin. First of all, this crowd completely forgot they were a COVID crowd, as they would throughout the 2 nights, but they forgot it for sure here, because it got a huge reaction, just a huge surprise, audible reaction from the crowd. But yeah, this is the only match of the 2 shows that I got spoiled on before I watched it, because I was catching up with all this stuff again, because I just got back from vacation. So I knew that Yujiro won. I saw that because I guess somebody had to tweet it, because it was like, what the fuck? But I had no idea how. So in my brain, I was thinking, okay, so obviously Evil came out or something. Lots of House of Torture shenanigans. Show came out. Something like that. Yujiro just kind of beat him. He hit a low blow, sure, but they just hit 2 straight DDTs, and he fucking beats him. First of all, I was like, maybe this bodes well for his matches in the G1 not having a lot of interference. Because if he's not going to use interference to beat Kota Ibushi, then I guess who are you going to use it to beat, right? Ibushi losing this, of course, doesn't mean anything. He lost his first matches in the last 2 years, too. And, of course, he won both tournaments. It could just be setting up a run later where he beats people like Naito and Shingo and wins the block on tiebreakers. But we'll have to see. But yeah, the match itself, I thought it was just like barely above average. I went 2 3/4 here. But the finish was so stunning. I was just like, wow. Just low blow, 2 DDTs, he wins. Okay.
Yeah, I was probably about the same as you, except I went the 3 just because of the audible reaction of the crowd. I do think, like, if Yujiro low blowed him and they wrestled for a couple more minutes afterwards, I'd say that's pretty clean. But the low blow directly did leave to the finish, so I don't think it's as clean as what you or what our overlord Joe Lanza said on his instant reactions. But I think it also does a good job of establishing Yujiro as a guy that can maybe beat your Naitos or your Shingos in this tournament that can cause a spoil. But other than that, it was just a fine 11-minute match, I suppose.
The all-time record, by the way, Yujiro Takahashi, he already has an all-time winning record against Tetsuya Naito. I think most people know that. He now also has an all-time winning record against Kota Ibushi. They
John,
were one of...
That reminds me. Have you seen the? You probably haven't, but did you see the little interviews they did with the G1 guys?
No.
So they interview all of them and ask. It was just questions like, "Who are you looking forward to facing?" And when they got to Naito, he's like Shingo, Ibushi, 82 club sort of thing. Yujiro Takahashi, you're probably wondering if I'm excited to face him. The answer is no. But it's good for him. He can be in the ring with Tetsuya Naito.
That's awesome.
Very good stuff.
But yes, so Yujiro now has a winning record against Kota Ibushi because they were tied at 1-1 going into this one. I have all the records. Let me just open that doc. I can't remember what the matches were. I went through this all on the preview episode, but let's see. I know Yujiro inexplicably has a win over Kota. So last year, okay, so Yujiro beat him in the 2013 G1, August 8th, 2013, and then Kota beat him last year in the G1 in 2020. So that was their 1-1, and now it is 1-0 or 2-1 Yujiro. So
looking forward to the Yujiro briefcase challenge.
There you go.
At Power Struggle.
Match number 3 on this show, also of course in the A block. the Great Okan defeated Tonga Loa in 17:45 with the Eliminator. Now, this was the match I was talking about that I figured we were probably going to disagree with on here if you didn't like anything on the undercard. I thought this was quite good.
Okay.
Jado, looking very jacked, came out with Tonga Loa. Tonga Loa was wearing a Control Your Narrative shirt. Isn't that like EC3's whole thing in Ring of Honor? I hope they're not. Please keep him as far away from New Japan as possible. The match started with a long lockup, went to a stalemate when they backed up in the ropes. Okan was hitting some shoulder blocks on Tonga Loa, but he came back with a nice, explosive, short range spear. Wow, try to say that 3 times fast with my particular speech impediment. But he hit that big spear to cut him off. It looked like a very cool spear. It just got very good, just really came through on it. And this was a very entertaining power battle. They just rammed each other repeatedly like 2 big bulls. And they kind of went back and forth at the end, including Jado very briefly getting involved before Okan finally put Tonga away with the Eliminator for the pin. And this is one where, like, I guess you and everybody else did not like it that much because Grapple only had a 2.77 as I was, doing my rating, lower than they had Ibushi Yujiro at because they had that at 3. But I thought this was a super fun power battle. I thought it was a good sign for both guys' tournaments. I thought they worked surprisingly well together. I went 3.5 stars in this. I thought it was good.
I mean, I don't think 3.5's out of, like, I don't think you're being ridiculous with that one. I was higher than Grapple. I went the gentleman's 3 again. I wasn't a huge fan. Like, what sort of turned me off actually was when Tonga Loa started to do his community theatre. Probably about in the middle, that wasn't good. There's other places I can watch that. Mid-match promos can fuck off. But I do think Okan is very interesting to watch. Just the way he moves, his move set, the way he looks. I'm really like, he might not ever be a big star, but he definitely is going to be a big-ish name for a long time, I think, just because he's so different. And I do think he's going to have better matches in this tournament. I think Tonga Loa is probably going to have better matches in this tournament. But I think this was just a good, solid second G1 match on night 1.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Apparently, I liked it more than everybody else, but I thought it was good match. And I'm usually the high person on Okan, and I like Tonga Loa too. So not really surprised I enjoyed this. A match I did not enjoy, on the other hand, was
can we just skip this? Can we just get rid of
match
it?
number 4. Toru Yano defeats Kenta in 11:07 with, quote, the whole roasted Kenta. Okay. I guess that's some kind of pun. But look, this was horrible. This was... I am not the type of person who comes on here and says all Toru Yano matches are a war crime, and blah, 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 blah. But this one was fucking awful. The only good thing about it was Kenta's big long entrance.
I was just about to say that the match highlights started and ended there.
Yeah, the big long introduction of the ring announcer to parody Yano's. One of them was that he likes Yoshihashi. That was funny. But yes, the match starts with a very long stall session. Both guys refuse to stay in the ring with each other. Yano eventually just starts walking out, and Kenta's throat obviously demands the ref start counting. They fight to the top of the ramp eventually. Kenta tries to tape Yano to the staging, the same way he beat him last year. He eventually does do this, but Yano gets himself free this time and beats the count. Kenta tosses Yano under the ring after taping his hands together to try to get him counted out again. Then, but Yano gets back and low blows Kenta with his hands still taped. He rolls Kenta up. Kenta kicks out. The crowd did react big to that. Like, oh, they couldn't believe he kicked out of the deadly low blow roll up. But then Yano hits a second punk kick, low blow, and very awkwardly rolls him up into another cradle for the pin. I thought this was excruciating. It was not funny at all. It was way too long for a match built entirely around rolling in and out of the ring and taping each other. This was like one of those matches where, like, I see the time 11:07. It felt like 11 hours. I mean, it really did. Like, that fucking Chase and Yano match from MetLife may have felt shorter than this. I mean, this felt excruciating. I gave it half a star. Hopefully, this ends up being one of the worst Yano matches of the tournament. If it doesn't, we're all in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I went 2, and only because I thought, and isn't this just such a fucking indictment on Yano that his opponent is the funnier person in the match? Like Kenta is so much like his entrance, and then just him trying to out Yano is funnier than any of Yano's antics. So that's why I gave it 2 only. Solely because Kenta is funny now.
Yeah, I
don't want to talk about this match anymore. It's done. And you know what? I looked up during the match. I had to look up how many more post intermission matches Yano gets. He gets 4 more.
Jeez. Wow.
Like, you can cop Yano if it's the opener, right? Because that's...
Yeah.
But when it's the third last match on the show, fuck off. Seriously. Do you have... Like, Naito can be in an opener. Shingo can be in an OP. You don't have to... Like, just get Yano... Like, I'm just sorry. This is... Yeah. Especially where the crowds can't even laugh. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes their enjoyment can shine through. You know? But this... When a light applause is the... is what you get after the big punchline, then it's just... It can... Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah. So the semifinal of the evening was Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Tetsuya Naito in 27:05 with, I guess, a new hold. The Yes, I Am a Long Way From Home. I thought it was the Orienteering from Napalm Death.
I thought that... Isn't it the same hold?
I don't know. Maybe it is.
It looked exactly the same, right?
Well, now if it is the same, then it's got a new name now. So this match, it starts out with the typical Zack versus Naito mat wrestling stuff. I did not think it was like their most exciting work in that genre. I thought, especially comparing it directly to last year's G1 match, the mat wrestling in that one, I thought that was way more fun than mat wrestling here. I just thought they did more interesting stuff than they did here. We got like this long stranglehold sequence that Naito finally breaks just before the 10-minute call, and then everything really picks up from there. There's some really good action from the 10 to 15-minute mark, a great dragon suplex at one point. Naito hits some really hard elbows to Zack in the corner, which Zack sells like absolute death, and then Naito hits him with the Esperanza out of there, but as Naito's getting ready to charge out of the corner, Zack hits this amazingly well-timed counter basement dropkick, which Naito just goes fucking flying for it. Just really takes a great bump. And then Zack immediately locks on a leg lock. Naito makes the ropes, but Zack makes him pay by repeatedly driving his knee into the mat. And then Naito gets this brilliant counter of a knee breaker from Zack by just reversing the momentum in midair and just spiking him on his head with a DDT. That was just after the 20-minute call. If anything, I promise that looked way cooler than I maybe made it sound there. I mean, it just looked really, really cool the way they pulled it off.
It helps that Zack sells DDTs maybe better than anyone.
Yeah. Like his neck is breaking every time. And you can buy it too because his neck is like a stack of dimes. Zack ends up hitting a sunset flip powerbomb off the top for a 2 count. But just when it looks like he has this match well under control, Naito suddenly hits a Destino out of nowhere. It was a very unique Destino setup. Like, basically, it was sort of between a running and a counter Destino. Like, he ducked Zack coming in and then just sort of hit it from a standing position. Like, no wind up, but not the traditional running version either because it was a very short run. So it looked very cool, but he couldn't cover him. Zack hit a spinning DDT off the middle turnbuckle, then held on to him and lifted him back up for the Zack driver, but Naito countered at the last second, hit Valencia. That looked so awesome. He then went for the wind-up Destino, but Zack counters in the European clutch for a very close 2.9999 count, and again, drawing gas out of the crowd. And we get the 25-minute call. They're trading strikes. Zack goes after Naito's leg again. He sweep kicks Naito, and then hits a very unique double stomp to the leg that looked brutal. And Naito sold it like his leg was broken. Zack went for the Zack driver, again, but Naito hit a sloppy counter Destino midair. Not his best counter one. Looked like it just kind of fell down, but what are you going to do? And then Zack takes Naito down into what I thought was the orienteering and the napalm death. Maybe it was. Whatever. Naito struggles for a while, but finally has no choice but to tap. And Zack gets his first win on him in quite a while. I believe that's his first win since the 2018 G1. Let me just confirm that. Yes. Naito had beat him three matches in a row after that. The Power Struggle 2018, G1 2020, and Summer Struggle in Osaka a couple months ago. So yeah, this was awesome. I didn't like it quite as much as their G1 match from last year that I went 4.5 stars on, mostly due to the kind of more boring or opening 10 minutes, like I said. But everything after that absolutely fucking rocked. Pretty amazing final stretch. Maybe if they really nailed that counter Destiny, I would have gone, the 4.5 anyway. But I went 4.25. Yet another awesome match between these two, which they can pretty much do in their sleep at this point. So, I'll watch it. I'm not complaining. I'll watch it every single time. These two are so great.
No, this is great. This is like Naito has had now the third most notebook matches this year behind Tanahashi, not Tanahashi, Omega and Shingo, for me personally. Except for Naito he just seems to stay at the 4, like all his, and I think that's just because of, he's having more mid-card sort of feuds rather than those big, long, epic ones. But so he's had a really consistent year, just in terms of being great. Not Wrestler of the Year sort of stuff, but just every time he has a match worth watching, it's great. I only went 4 on this, so a little bit less than you, mostly because of that 10 minutes. But I think, and I'm not the biggest fan of knee-based matches, regardless of how good someone is at selling them or how good someone is at doing that offense. But I thought this was probably one of, and Naito's great at the selling anyway, but this was probably one of Naito's best matches against Zack in terms of that selling. Like, maybe that New Japan Cup 2018 match where he also tapped him out to the orienteering of Napalm Death to really put Zack over. And I thought this was just as good as selling against Zack. And it's actually made me think, maybe Zack is coming out of this block. So, because then you don't have to burn through assuming Okada wins the B block. But you don't have to burn through an Okada, Shingo, Okada, Naito, Okada, Ibushi match. And he's a credible enough opponent to beat in a final. So it's just got me thinking a little bit. Probably after, next 2 nights, A block nights, I'll look like an idiot. But yeah, this great. This is, this feud can.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
From earaches to strep tests, there's MinuteClinic at CVS. See a provider, fill a prescription, and grab essentials. Or see us online with telehealth options. That's healthier made easier. Visit MinuteClinic at CVS today. Services vary by location. See MinuteClinic.com for details.
Continue. Or not feud, but they can have as many matches as they want, these two.
Yeah, I agree for sure. All right, so the main event was Shingo Takagi defeating Tomohiro Ishii in 27-56 with the Last of the Dragon. Here's why I have to eat some crow. Because if you listen to my preview podcast on the Patreon, again, patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase, you will know that I kind of shaded this main event. I said this wasn't that big of a deal to me because, as great as their first 2 matches were, the match in the 2019 G1 and then the never open weight title match from Cork and Hall in February 2020, I didn't feel the same thing in that September 2020 G1 match. If anything, I felt like they had become pretty repetitive in that match, and it was like, I don't know if I'm really that excited to see these two again. They made me look stupid because they had an absolutely incredible match here, just absolutely delivered here. I think this is probably their best match to date. I think it's probably even better than the 2019 G1 match. I'll go through it here, obviously, but these two, they had it. They took it to another level here. Totally made up for the G1 match from last year that I just didn't think was anything special. So they started out running into each other, elbowing each other in their faces right from the opening bell. No surprise there. At one point, they just start doing these repeated back chop suplexes, just dropping each other right on their heads before Shingo pops up and just fucking kills Ishii with a sliding lariat to finally win that exchange. Just really crazy sequence. And then these two just keep taking each other's heads off with lariats, really some of the hardest lariats to ever see. They start headbutting each other at one point. That I can always live without in a post-Shibata world. I can always have to say that. But Shingo finally gets the Made in Japan out of nowhere, but Ishii kicks out just before the 20-minute call. And the crowd, as this match builds, just forgets more and more that they're a COVID crowd. They are loudly gasping as Shingo gets dropped on his head with a German suplex, only to pop right up and nearly take Ishii's head off with another super hard lariat for a 2 count. Ishii, he counters the Last of the Dragon from Shingo at one point with a crucifix bomb. Ishii, I'm not trying to fade him or anything, but he does not exactly come up with a lot of new moves, I mean, he's just, he kind of has a formula that works for him, and he never really, strays from it much. So to see him do this very, what's the word I'm looking for? This very, this very specific counter, right? This very contextual counter that really, it worked here because it was a counter for the Last of the Dragon. It's not the kind of thing he usually does. He doesn't usually adapt his style a lot to the other guy. So it was a very cool and natural counter. Ishii and Shingo, they ended up colliding so hard on a lariat exchange that it sounded like 2 shotgun blasts went off. And then Shingo fell into Red Shoes, which bumped him. And at first I was like, why are they doing a ref bump in this match? I think it was actually inadvertent, though, because Red Shoes did not even stay down for very long. I think he was kind of like, well, if Shingo knocked into me, I had to at least, sell it. And then he got right up, though, and then pretended to was ready to count when Ishii hit a power bomb right after that. Shingo drops Ishii on his fucking head with a pumping bomber. I mean, he hits his pumping bomber, and Ishii comes straight down on his head, gets a huge reaction from the crowd. Ishii kicks out again. We get the 3 minutes remaining call while they're both on the mat. Ishii hits the throat chops. Shingo hits the punch. They both hit some more brutal headbutts on each other, and the last one finally stuns Ishii enough to let Shingo hit Last of the Dragon for the win. So incredible match. I had my doubts after the G1 match last year, but they came back this time with their best match yet. And the Osaka crowd helped a lot, reacting even when they're not supposed to here. I went 4 3/4. It is my number 2 match of the year right now, only behind Naito versus Ibushi from New Beginning. So G1 off to a great start with this one. This was an incredible match.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot of beating to tip this for match of the tournament. I went 4.5 on it, and I was similar to you. I'm maybe not as harsh on this upcoming one as maybe you might have been, but I definitely thought they were starting to have maybe some diminishing returns with each other.
I definitely think they did last year, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And it was still a great match, but I think what makes things like Okada Tanahashi or Okada Omega or Naito Omega so great is that they always build on their matches, whereas I think Shingo and Ishii weren't. They were just having meat slappers every time without really adding a new wrinkle. But this time I felt like they sort of did add some more wrinkles, just with sort of the intensity, that headbutt spot at the very end. That was like stand and pace sort of stuff. And I loved how there was no, how there's usually a Made in Japan pumping bomber, then Last of the Dragon. That's the sort of sequence with Shingo's finish. This time it was just headbutt, stun, up, Last of the Dragon. I love that sort of part of it. It was, very. It's going to take a lot of beating, I think, to beat this match of the tournament.
So there you go. So the standings in the A block after night 1, very simple, obviously. 6-way tie for first. Shingo Takagi, ZSJ, Toru Yano, Great Khan, Yujiro. They all are 1-0 for 2 points. And it's a 5-way tie for first, not a 6-way.
Show can get some points too, maybe.
What'd you say?
Show can get some points.
Oh,
If
there
wanted to
you
make
go.
it a 6-way tie.
A 5-way tie for last. Tomohiro Ishii, Tetsuya Naito, Kenta, Tonga Loa, and Kota Ibushi, all 0-1 for 0 points. The next night of the G1 for the A block, which we might as well preview now before we get to night 2, is night 3 on Thursday, September 23rd from the Oda Ward Gym. So no non-tournament match since it's in Tokyo. You have both 1-0, Toru Yano and the Great Okan, 1-on-1 in the opener. I would assume Okan wins that, but I guess who the fuck knows what the other one.
Didn't Yano beat Okan in the New Japan Cup, which really pissed me off.
He beat him, in the New Japan Cup.
Yeah, Okan's got a weird win back.
He's 1-0. Then we have match number 2, a first-time ever singles match. Kenta at 0 points against Yujo Takahashi at 2 points. I would assume Kenta wins that.
Bullet Club War.
So one guy's going to tell the other one, "You laid down for me, sir." And the other guy's going to be like, "Okay, I'll lay down for you." And then he's going to roll him up. Yeah, you got to do all that. Match number 3, another first ever singles match. This is one I'm excited for that like no one else on earth might be excited for, but I'm into it. And they're both 0-1 here, so I assume Naito will get his first win. Tetsuya Naito versus Tonga Loa. I just think Loa tossing Naito around and Naito selling for him could be a really entertaining match. So
I like that. I like, not that they're the same person, of course, but I like Naito versus Tama Tonga from a couple of years ago. And I think this probably has a chance to be better.
The semi-main event, these two always have amazing matches with each other. Kota Ibushi and Tomohiro Ishii, both 0-1 at this point. I would expect Ibushi to win, but who knows?
Ishii,
you think Ibushi starts 0-2?
No, I think Ibushi probably wins this.
It should be incredible though. Either way, they always have incredible.
No, matches. I think there's going to be an upset in the main event though.
Oh, okay, there you go. So the main event: Shingo Takagi versus Zack Sabre Jr. They're both 1-0. You think Zack's winning, huh?
Only if Zack, if my theory is correct. I think this is one of the matches Shingo drops.
And their all-time record is actually 1-0 Shingo, but it was a match that went 9 minutes and 27 seconds in WXW in 2009. So it may as well be
that one.
What? I'm sorry?
Can't say I've seen that one.
Yeah, it was the semifinals of the 16-karat gold tournament in 2009. I've never seen it either. So I think for most people, it'll be their first time seeing these two wrestle. But they have had a match before. So there you go. That's night 3 in the A block on Thursday, September 23rd. Night 2 of the G1, the B blocks night, was from today, Sunday, September 19th, also in the Ideon Arena, Osaka. The opener, your non-tournament match, was Sho defeating Kosei Fujita and 809 via referee stoppage with the the snake bite. I thought this was quite a bit more boring than the opener from the previous night, maybe because they went longer or whatever, even by 2 minutes. But it was a lot of choking from Sho. It was fairly boring. Fujita did get to show off some nice fire as he finally got some offense, but didn't last very long. And then Sho hit a couple of decent-looking deadlift Germans and then put him in the new snake bite, and that was it. I don't know. Sho's heat period here was just so boring. I only went 2.25. I thought it'd be a low average match.
Yeah, I wasn't loving Sho's offense in this, and I thought, was it just me or did Fujita get more than Oiwa as well?
He kind of did, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, Sho. I mean, the whole thing was Sho, and one of the reasons why I hate him joining joining the House of Torture / Bullet Club is because before this, he had this kind of almost shoot style offense where he would do a lot of grappling and stuff, and now it seems like we're totally going to move away from that. He's just going to be choking people, and it's just not. We have enough fucking boring heels in this company. We don't need to make Sho into one too. So
yeah, have you noticed that there's a big emphasis on the House of Torture T-shirts going on, with the actual guys in it?
I guess they're trying to sell some T-shirts.
Well, I've also got a bit of a headcanon theory as well that, how Naito and Bushi always wear their T-shirts?
Sure.
I'm thinking, in my headcanon, that Evil is making House of Torture how he wanted LIJ to turn out.
There you go. Match number 2, the first B block match of the tournament. Evil defeats Yoshihashi in 17-15 with the Evil. It was a pretty typical, what you'd imagine from these two here. Evil beat him down with plenty of help from Dick Togo. Yoshihashi did his usual fiery comebacks and his hope spots. Simple but effective. And Red Shoes at one point, he slapped Evil in the face when Evil had a hold of him and tried like block a German suplex or something. And that set Yoshihashi damn near pinning him just before the 15-minute call. And Yoshi does get a visual pin on Evil while Togo's distracting the ref, but that leads to a low blow from Evil, followed by the STO for the pin. I thought this was pretty fun for what it was. I went 3.5 stars on it. These two have good chemistry together. Their match from last year's G1 was quite good as well. So, it really works out. Yoshi, the big underdog against the evil man.
Yeah, I went 3.5 too. I can deal with the leg sweeping under the rope and some of the interference, but my issue with Dick Togo is that it's like Yoshihashi, he fights hard to get back on top, and then Dick Togo's the one that puts the fire out, right? And then Yoshihashi fights back up to get, and then it's again, and it's again. Like it's either maybe just do the little leg sweeps that distract the ref sort of stuff, and then to get the advantage, and then Yoshihashi fights back, and then Dick Togo does the big interference to lead to the finish. Like it's a constant like build up interference. Like it's a little too much for my liking. But I also thought this was the best the butterfly lock has ever looked. Funnily enough, maybe because Evil sold it pretty well, but but the butterfly lock is a pretty dog shit submission finisher. And I thought this one, it was like, is he going to win with it? I was not convinced, but I thought there was a good chance. But yeah, 3.5, and I don't need 3 lots of Dick Togo interference, big interference spots. It's a little too much.
There you go. The next match number 3, was Jeff Cobb defeating Chase Owens in 12-11 with the Tour of the Islands. The match started out really fast here. Chase kicked Cobb to the floor and tried to follow him out there, only to get sent absolutely flying with a gigantic overhead belly to belly. And that landing just looked really nasty for Chase Owens. I think, this match was surprisingly good. I mean, these two worked really well together. Chase worked well as the underdog, which, of course, is not a role he typically plays in New Japan because he's always the heel in the match. But here he just really, ended up being the underdog here against the bigger heel, Jeff Cobb. And Cobb, of course, eventually hit Tour of the Islands to put him away. I went 3.5 on this as well. And, I thought Chase did a good job here, just like trying to hang with Cobb, but getting beaten in the end, as you would expect.
John, we're on the same wavelength for this one. I'm also 3.5. Chase is a guy that I always thought he was sort of overrated because he would have good 3-minute closing stretches and get pinned, but I thought everything else he does is sort of just, average. Like, solid, but nothing special. And I thought he showed some pretty good fire here against Cobb. I do kind of wish, though, Cobb just beat him in 4 minutes, though. Like, I think Cobb establishing, he's already beaten Okada, sure. But, just establishing Cobb as this sort of monster that can just devour people in this tournament, especially if Okada's going to beat him at the end to get through. I wouldn't mind sacrificing one good match or a pretty good match for to get Cobb even more over, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a huge gripe at all. It's just a little preference of mine.
Then we had Sonata and Tama Tonga. So Sonata defeated Tama Tonga in 1904 with the O'Connor Bridge. So Tama, basically they did lots of posing. Tama showed off that he's surprisingly jacked, and he convinced Sonata to pose on the top rope right after he had done that. That was pretty funny. And then he, of course, attacks Sonata from behind.
Sonata falls for that sort of stuff a lot. Have you noticed? Yeah,
I think his like gimmick, he's got more looks than brains, I think, is the idea.
yeah.
It's like, okay, he's a little too into himself, I guess.
He's a himbo for sure.
He is that is for sure. Then we had Sonata, match I thought it got a little dull during Thomas Heat segment. Not really surprising, but I thought it did get pretty dull for a little bit. But then Sonata made a nice comeback. He hit planchas on both Tama and Jado in rapid succession. They went back and forth with some pretty good action. And then Tama busted out a double underhook pile driver. I guess it's a J driller, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, no, it was. It looked exactly like the J driller.
And that was quite the new setup move for him. I was like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, the J driller setting up a stun gun. Yeah, it shouldn't be the other way around.
And then they trade. Oh, after that, Sonata. So I didn't love Sonata's counter, the gunstone and the skull end. They just kind of fell down together. It looked like instead of doing the move.
It was like poorly in theory, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those counters that doesn't look impressive, or even like make much sense in like if this was a real kind of way.
Tama's head was on the wrong side of Sonata's body to get the underhook. If you know what I mean, like because they fell down and then Sonata had to reach around to put him under rather than just falling. Right. Like I think if they fell like that, it would have been a lot cooler. But yeah, a lot of people actually liked it in real time on the Slack.
Yeah, I didn't think it looked very cool. So then we got after they kind of just traded finisher attempts a couple more times, and then Sonata got the pin with his O'Connor roll. I thought this was pretty good. But judging by the grapple rating, I definitely seem to be the low person on this one. I went like 3 1/4. Some of the counters toward the end just look a little too goofy for me. And Thomas Heat segment was pretty boring. But other than that, there's plenty of fun action too. So 3 1/4.
I really like this. I'm probably higher on Sonata than.
I like Sonata though.
Yeah, I mean, I like LIJ sort of connection, obviously. But these are two guys that I think are really athletic. They often sort of lose themselves in matches a little bit, like they get lost, or just with their sort of match layouts. I think they're not the best at setting out a match for themselves, but this was surprisingly really good. Someone said that they've got really good chemistry together. I don't know. I can't really remember them having good matches before. I mean, some of the Sonata Evil Guerrillas of Destiny matches were okay, but yeah, I can't really remember them ever having good matches. But I thought this was really good. Probably, I don't know, the best singles Tama-Tonga match I have seen in a long, long time. And I really... The O'Connor roll is such a good finisher for Sonata because it just suits his lazy-ass personality so well. But yeah, I thought... I'm a bit higher than you. What was the grapple rating for it?
It was like 3.61.
Right, so
I was a little...
I'm a little higher than that too, so I guess that's in the middle of us.
Well, so you gave 3 1/4.
3.75.
Yeah, that's definitely higher than I was. So but the average is closer to you though. So what do I know? I'm just an idiot.
Again, I think it's because I was expecting some dirt really, and got something pretty good, like something pretty fun.
Semi-main event was Taichi defeating Hiroki Goto in 1830 with the Black Mephisto. This I loved. It started a little bit slow. Taichi was choking Goto where they camera came out ringside, among other things. So, unsurprisingly, he was in total heel mode. I saw some kind of funny tweets that were like, oh, why can't we get G1 Taichi all the time? This may have been the most heelish / most like old Taichi I've seen him wrestle in like 3 or 4 months. Honestly.
Yeah, a lot of people telling on themselves here. Like he's
like a lot of people were like or basically may as well have said, I haven't watched New Japan in months, so I don't really know.
He was Naito in Summer Struggle was as G1
he fought 100% clean
as G1 Taichi as you'd like.
Yeah.
Like this was still good, but like
I still love this a lot. But the early parts of this match, he was completely like his old heel self.
He was Junior Taichi again.
Yeah.
And fine, Goto's a good foil for that, but
yeah,
a lot of people dobbing on themselves.
It's like if you want to see Taichi wrestle a clean fight, You got to go all the way back to like a month ago
Yeah.
when he was fighting Naito.
Maybe they meant
and
they
Sonata.
wish they could see Best of the Super Juniors Taichi every week.
It was just very bizarre takes from people who clearly were not watching New Japan. So that's fine.
And also, I think a lot of the thing is about like those, those European and American fans that you were talking about that maybe are a bit down on this G1. These are the people that still they don't watch it. They don't watch it as much as they used to, but they just think that Okan and Tangaloa and Taichi suck just because of reputation and probably a little bit of Dave Meltzer. But
the Taichi one is the one that's the most egregious to me, though. It's
right,
like,
because he's improved more than anything. And I mean, sure, if you don't like Dangerous Tekkers, you probably don't you probably don't like him as much. But I think they're been the best tag team in New Japan in a long, long time. And a lot of it is to do with him and his newfound babyface spirit.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, the Taichi takes are the ones, and I hear, like, there are a lot of people who will tell you, like, Taichi's still not good. Like, that will come up even, like, I don't know. I don't know if I should call them out. Like, in the Voice Wrestling flagship, they'll sometimes act like Taichi isn't very good. And I'm just like, these are, like, takes from 2017 or something, or even earlier than that, like 2016. I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, he is, like, to put him in this, okay, even if you're not as high on Taichi as me, okay, which is fine. I love Taichi. Everybody knows that about me. To mention him in the same breath as, like, Yujiro and Tamatonga and Toru Yano and the dregs of the tournament that, you don't know what you're going to get out of some. Chase Owens, I'll throw in there too. Like, not to insult these people, but, like, wrestlers who have not had much of a, either they haven't been at a high level or, whatever. You want to just call it like you say, the bottom of the tournament. To even mention Taichi in the same breath as them is a fucking joke. I mean, this is a guy, even if you don't love him as much as I do, you should at least be able to acknowledge by this point that he is not one of the worst wrestlers in this tournament. If you still think Taichi is one of the worst wrestlers in this tournament, I do not know what you're watching. No. That's all I can say. I don't know what promotion you're watching if you still think Taichi's one of the worst heavyweights in this tournament. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
This is a guy that has breathed life into a boring as batshit tag team division, who has just won a semi-main event on the opening night of his block in the G1, who has main events coming up with guys like Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kazuchika Okada, and those are going to be great matches. And he might not be your cup of tea, but you have to acknowledge him.
Yes, you have to acknowledge him. It's a great way to put it. And it's like, look where he is on this card. He is in the semi-main event against Hiroki Goto. I hate to break this to people. This match is not the semi-main event because of Hiroki Goto. Okay?
Hey, Hiroki Goto is in the opener against Tanahashi night 4.
I mean, Taichi is at a higher level than any of these other people we just mentioned. I mean, he is not a low card wrestler anymore.
He might be the fifth.
I'm sorry that offends you.
He might be the 5th biggest name in that block, only behind Tanahashi, Okada, Evil, unfortunately, and Sonata. And he's probably closer to on level with Sonata.
Yeah, it's like he and Sonata are probably around the same level, and then they're probably right behind Evil. And then obviously Tanahashi and Okada, the 2 big stars. But he's not on. I mean, he's not like this fucking job.
He's going to go 5-4.
Yeah,
he's going to have a winning record. Yeah, and it's going to be good.
I mean, it's just very insane to me that these takes are still out there.
No, they're the Dave Meltzer 2016 sort of takes, but yeah.
All right, we had a little audio snafu there, so a little bit of an awkward transition here, but we were ranting about Taichi and Hiroki Goto, and specifically about Taichi and people's takes on Taichi being perpetually outdated. So I guess we made our point there. We can move on to the actual match.
Yeah.
So he was choking Goto, like I said, at ringside and stuff. It was a little bit slow there. He was in total heel mode, but it really picks up from there. And there's this big trading of elbows from Goto and leg kicks from Taichi, which leads up to them trading an axe bomber and a lariat, respectively. Goto finally gets the better of that. He leaves Taichi down, but then Taichi comes back with an Odoa Otoshi, which he does that move so well now. So he's just a move he started doing pretty recently as like a natural, evolution of doing the choke all the time, and it just really, really works for him. There's a great counter sequence. It starts with Goto. So Taichi pulls the pants off. He goes for a super kick. Goto catches his leg, lifts him straight up onto his shoulders, I think to go for the Ushigoroshi probably. But Taichi drops down behind Goto, goes for the dangerous backdrop, but Goto counters that with this awesome Shotenkai out of nowhere for a near fall. That was awesome. Taichi comes back, though, with the backdrop suplex he was looking for just before the 15-minute call, and then hits a big standing enziguri right to the face as Goto staggers back to his feet. And then Taichi gets that. Chris Charlton yelled the name of this move. I didn't catch it. I forget what it is, but it's that backdrop Nodawa combo where you lift the guy up in a backdrop and then hit the Nodawa that Tawa used to do all the time. And it very nearly gets the pin. Goto just barely kicks out. And then Taichi, he puts Goto away very decisively. Hits a running form to the face, and then hits the Blackened Fist over with a completely clean pin. So even with the choking and heel step at the start, he is still beating guys clean here. And this was an awesome match once we got past the slow start with all the choking. I would go 4 stars flat here. I thought they traded lots of hard striking, lots of impact moves to have a little classic G1 battle. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was a little lower than you just because of the sort of boring choking at the start. The stuff that people wish they Taichi would bring to the table every match. But yeah, I went 3.75, and I think this is probably the 4th best match of the weekend. Yeah, I think it was. I'm going to settle with that. It was definitely. And again, Taichi gets a win over.
Oh, that's exactly where I have it too. By the way, 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, so we're not that far apart with that one. Yeah. But yeah, there's not that. Yeah, it was as clean as a sheet. Essentially, after that first, what was it, 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Yeah. He completely went back to Dangerous Tekka's mode, which is funny, I guess. But yeah. It's just a very, very good professional wrestling match.
And he got the sumo bowing and all that at the end. That was just...
I love that little part of his gimmick now. That doing that forearm, that sumo... Because I just started watching a show called Hinamaru.
Oh, I forgot I forgot that was the sumo... That was the illegal sumo forearm. Yeah, that's why he does that now. Yeah,
I just started watching Hinamaru Sumo, which is an anime. And, I finished it now. But it's just seeing some of those, him dropping down and putting the fist on the mat, then rushing for the forearm. It's just, I just love it. I love it, love it, love it.
The main event, speaking of things we loved, was Kazuchika Okada defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi in 29-36 with the Rainmaker. I was so glad I went in this unspoiled because these guys, they've had, I think, either 3, I think? Yeah, 3 G1 draws before. So, clearly it was very possible I had another one here, but it did not go the draw. Okada got the win. The first 5 minutes, the typical Okada-Tanahashi early portion of a match. They did some basic mat wrestling, some shoulder blocks. They posed at each other. Tanahashi had a really tight headlock on Okada right as we got the 5-minute call, and we stayed in that headlock for a bit after. Okada eventually reversed to his own headlock. This is where it started to drag for me quite a bit. Okada had his own headlock. He switched to a chin lock. It was even more boring. And that really went on forever. And I did like Okada showing some cockiness, doing his old school 1-foot pose on Tanahashi, really recalling old times there. But unfortunately, he went right back to the chin lock after that. But, things picked up from there. Tanahashi came back with his usual offense. He hits the second rope flip senton. It's his first dragon screw of the match. He tried to lock in the Texas Cloverleaf, but Okada made it to the ropes immediately before Tana could flip him over. Okada came back and drop-kicked Tanahashi off the top rope to the floor. He tried to hit the running boot to Tanahashi's face on the outside, but Tana caught the boot, dragon screws him again in a nice spot. He goes up top like he's going to hit the high fly flow crossbody to the floor, but he gets cut off by Okada, who teases he's going to tombstone him off the apron. But Tanahashi escapes that. It's another dragon screw to send him all the way to the floor, and then finally hits the high fly flow crossbody. Very cool sequence. And that was the first thing in the match that felt like the two of them not just playing the hits. I was a little bit worried up to that point that it was going to be another G1 Dallas match with them just playing the hits. But they did finally deviate from their own little interesting thing there. Back in the ring, Tanahashi hit another crossbody off the top, but Okada rolled straight through it into locking in the money club. That may have been the coolest entry into a money club he ever did. Because everybody knows I hate that move. I think a lot of people hate that move, but it was like the smoothest and coolest he's ever gotten that stupid hold locked in, I think. Tanahashi almost escaped, but Okada hits the neck breaker, locks it back in, but then Tanahashi finally makes the ropes, and thankfully that was it for the money clip in this match. Okada and Tanahashi battle over a tombstone before Okada finally spikes him on his head with the spinning tombstone. He goes for the Rainmaker, but Tanahashi ducks it. But then Okada very nearly gets the pin with his big cradle flash pin. That was a great near fall. And he immediately hits the shotgun dropkick as soon as Tanahashi gets back up, right before the 25-minute call. Tanahashi ducks another Rainmaker attempt, and then someone finally counters that stupid, spinning lariat that Okada does, the spinning short arm lariat where he's the one who spins, which I always think looks so stupid. It just always looks like the other guy has plenty of time to counter it, and Tanahashi does counter here with a nice sling blade. He then hits a second sling blade. He goes for the high fly throw to the front, but of course Okada gets his knees up because Tanahashi didn't hit the one in the back of the crossbody first. We get the 3 minutes remaining call. Okada picks Tanahashi back up, hits a big short arm lariat, followed by a second one. He tries another Rainmaker, but Tanahashi ducks, gets the inside cradle near fall. Then he drops Okada on his head with a huge release German suplex. He follows up with a dragon suplex hold right after the 2 minutes remaining call. Okada kicks out. Now, this next moment in the match, I thought kind of derailed the momentum of it to me. They traded elbows. I didn't love that with less than 2 minutes left. It felt like both of them were, up to that point, were looking for, they really did a great job building up the desperation of the match and the desperation of these two guys to find some way to put the other one away. So for them to go from that to a pretty standard elbow trading, I thought was a mistake. I thought it really broke up the flow of the match in the last 2 minutes for me. So that was the thing that I took off points for that. I mean, it didn't get to, this match probably would have been 4.5 for me, whereas instead of what it ended up at, if not for this elbow exchange. Okada wins that exchange as we get 1 minute remaining. Then he hits Tanahashi with a huge drop kick. He hits this, this sit-out Michinoku driver. Is that a good way to put it, from the tombstone position? Chris Charlton calls it the landslide version of the tombstone. I guess that's a reference to Nakamura's old landslide finish.
Oh, yeah, it looks like that. It's more, yeah, you're right. It's more of a Michinoku driver.
Yeah.
More of a neck bump rather than the head spike, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then Okada hits the Rainmaker and then gets the pin with only seconds remaining. So I can already tell I'm the low one on this match. I thought it was awesome, but I went 4.25, not at the match of the year contender level I'm seeing other people throw around. So I had a feeling of Okada and Tanahashi. It did have that feeling of them playing the hits at times, that there were enough little twists that I thought it wasn't on the quite on the same level as the G1 Dallas match from 2019. But the elbow exchange down the stretch really annoyed me. And it really just kind of hurt the match for me, just as it felt like it was building well. And that early portion was just really boring. But I still love the match a lot. But these are my nitpicks for not going even higher. So still a great main event, though, to cap off a great first 2 nights of the G1 Climax 31.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember when I said it's going to take some beating to beat Shingo and Ishii for match of the tournament?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one did for me.
There you go.
I love this. This was definitely better than the Dallas match. I think this was definitely better than the briefcase match they had in 2018.
Ooh, I can't agree with that. The briefcase match is like my third favorite match of theirs overall.
Oh, man. That for whatever reason, that briefcase, I think I was very annoyed. Not annoyed, but I loved the fact that Okada beat him at that year's Dontaku to beat the Reigns, the defense record, and I didn't like how they went back to that match so quickly.
No, that's true.
Anyway,
that's true.
Yeah, tangent. Anyway, that's a tangent. But I actually like the elbows. I could feel the desperation in those elbows, but it's not. But they didn't have anything else to really throw at each other at that time. Like they had I felt like they had thrown all their bombs at each other, and they were just sort of out, and they were just trying to just inflict damage to each other at this point. And so I actually think elbows helped my enjoyment of the match. but yeah, it felt. But I think I might be high on it as well because it actually felt like we are now have got the Rainmaker back. Like Okada at Wrestle Kingdom had to bring him out to beat Ospreay, and then he sort of went back into his slump. So this, I think it's a great story if they are culminating this 1 year slump of Okada with him becoming the Rainmaker. Well, I guess he's always technically been the Rainmaker in air quotes, but being that persona again without the reliance on the money clip and without the reliance on that, cradles thing he's been doing. And I think Grant Akuma tweeted as well that a company needs a top star like Rainmaker Okada no more than New Japan does at the moment. And I think it's if crowds are going to come back soon with full capacity and making noise. Joel has said it as well in the Slack that Rainmaker Okada as the champion is a great reset button. And I think it's the easy story. He gets his win back in from Shingo on night 1 of the Dome, and then he goes on to beat Ospreay.
All I will say to this is I'm fine with it as long as it doesn't go on very long.
Oh, no, I don't. It doesn't need to. I mean...
The world does not need another long Okada title reign.
No.
Had enough of those.
No, I mean, I'm thinking, New Japan Cup winner beats him, but...
Yeah, 6 months or less, I'm fine with, but
it's a good
over that.
It's a good, I think. Yeah, okay, because he's been so dominant for so long. You need to find sort of ways to do things with him that don't include him going for the title or being the champion. And
he's done a horrible job of.
Well, the 2018 Red Okada, the Balloon Okada, was better than the Slump Okada for sure. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't hate Slump Okada that much, I guess, because, my favorite wrestler was champion during a portion of that, and another one of my favorite wrestlers is champion now during a portion of it. Like, it's not taking up a big chunk of my emotional investment in the company. But if he is now back and he's going to use the Rainmaker again every match, sign me up. But yeah, this is my match of the tournament. I think only really Shingo and Naito or Shingo and Ibushi and Naito has a chance at topping it. But so far, this is my match of the tournament. And I went a high 4.5.
There you go. So the B-Box standings after night 2, Okada, Taichi, Sonata, Cobb, and Evil all tied with 1-0. And then Tanahashi, Goto, Tamatanga, Chase Owens, and Yoshihashi all tied at 0-1. Excuse me. So I'm going to give my top 5 matches of the tournament, which I will do throughout the tournament, eventually expand to a top 10. But in 5th place, so I had a lot of matches 3.5. I picked Evil versus Yoshihashi from night 2. I just think I enjoyed that the most of the 3.5-star matches. I think they have great chemistry together, like I said. In 4th place, I have Taichi and Goto at 4 stars, also from night 2. 3rd place, Okada versus Tanahashi, 4.25, also from night 2. 2nd place, Naito versus Zack from night 1, also 4.25. And 1st place, of course, Shingo versus Ishii from night 1 at 4.75 stars.
I think we've got the same top 4, but just in a shuffled order. But I would have had Sonata and Tama as my 5th best match.
There you go. So there's your G1 Climax coverage, folks. Again, we will be covering it throughout the next 2 weeks on the Patreon, so you don't have to wait for the next free episode. If you want to hear me talk night 3 on Thursday, exclusively on the Patreon, and of course night 4 on Friday, night 5 on Sunday, night 6 the following Wednesday, night 7 the following Thursday, night 8 the following Friday. I guess you get the idea. But all that stuff is on the Patreon for only $5 going forward. So it's patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. I don't think anyone ever really regrets going for the $5. I think there's so much content on there.
But I was going to say that night 6 of the G1 is Shingo Naito in a main event. So if you want to hear a person gush over a wrestling match, which is no doubt going to be a match of the year contender, that is I would absolutely sign up for the Wrestling Omakase Patreon.
The G1 is rolling on here. Lots of cool stuff coming up. So obviously follow on the Patreon at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. And the other tournament, of course, we're covering on the Patreon and on this show is the Noah N-1 Victory. Now, I originally planned to do nights 2 and 3 of the N-1 here. We did night 1 on the Patreon already. But unfortunately, I did not get to night 3. Just ran out of time trying to stuff everything into one day today after my vacation. So just didn't happen. But yeah, so instead of that, what we're gonna do is I'll release an episode tomorrow on Monday on September 20th on the Patreon, covering nights 3 and 4 in one episode. It's only 8 matches anyway, so not that big a deal. But yeah, so that'll be on the Patreon tomorrow. When or could be out there today, depending on when you're listening to this, obviously. But yes, we'll cover nights 3 and 4 together, and then I'll get through all the no fan shows. So yes, this is from yesterday, Saturday, September 18th. The Noah Special Arena aired on Wrestle Universe with no fans. Boy, did going to this after those 2 G1 nights was very difficult. Oh. Anyone who claims that the New Japan, like the New Japan crowds with restrictions, are the same thing as having no fans, should have to watch those 2 Osaka shows and then watch this back to back to back, because man, it was so tough going from fans making any kind of noise, even if it was mostly clapping. That crowd still managed to sound like they were into everything. They broke the COVID rules more than a few times. They were stomping really loud. There was plenty of noise on that show. Going from that to nothing, to no fans making noise, it was really tough. So, I do think like that was a factor here as to why I didn't enjoy a lot of stuff. 2 matches were not great. 2 matches I thought were. There was one match I liked a lot. So,
I think we might have the same match that we liked a lot. But I think you've not seen Night 3 yet, have you, John?
No, I haven't seen Night 3 yet.
It was largely boring.
Okay. Without spoiling anything, you can go just tell me, because I haven't even looked at the results yet. So.
No, it was. You can imagine. I didn't like the main event whatsoever of Night 3, and you can imagine why. But about last year, I got really on Noah. Like I became a real big Noah fan, and then by February of this year, Keiji Muto won the title, and I can't stand it anymore. It's completely gone in a 180 of what I liked about the company when I got into it around this time last year.
Losing Go Shiozaki was such a big blow for them. Obviously he'll be back at some point from his injury, but man, he was carrying that company. It's very clear in hindsight. I'm not as down on Keiji Muto as some people, but
it's just boring. I don't know. It's a big
night. Well, he's not champion anymore, but
yeah, I know. But it's a big, but he's still on a lot of the main events of this tournament. But yeah, I think it's such a downgrade from Shiozaki being sort of the first champion that when you're following the company. Mm-hmm. I do like the 4-block set out though. I think it's. I don't know.
I don't know if I do. I kind of don't like it.
I don't mind it.
It feels too short.
It does, but I don't mind anything different. I do, however, really like, now this is probably the highlight of the show and the N1 tournament, I do like how they put up their wrestler stats on the screen during the match. Mm-hmm. I think it's
they took that from the E2.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, it's the same company now.
So. I guess it is, but I don't mind stealing as long as you're stealing the good parts.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm not out here to say like everything in Noah sucks or anything. I'm not really that far down on them, but so far this tournament has gotten off to like a pretty start is what I would say. Not like a terrible start, because both nights had at least one match I put at 4 stars, but like there's a lot of stuff here I wasn't into, as we'll get to here again. The show opened with the D block. It was Masakatsu Funaki defeating Akitoshi Saito in 12:53. I thought this match was very boring early. Absolutely nothing going on. They just stand there looking at each other for a while, not in the cool Go Fujita way, just a very boring looking at each other. After a long stretch of nothing, we finally do get something. Saito pulled the mats up the floor and hit a pile driver on Funaki out there on the floor. That I did not see that coming. It was kind of cool. But then Saito slowly controlled Funaki back in the ring. Eventually hits an Iron Claw slam, but Funaki essentially no-sells it and hits a rolling capo kick to put Saito down. They both got back up. They traded elbows from Saito, open hand slaps from Funaki, and then Funaki finally catches his arm looking for an elbow, takes him straight down the mat into a triangle, and then gets the arm extended into a cross arm breaker, and Saito has no choice but to tap out immediately. I thought this was really boring a lot of the way. Not like the worst match I've ever seen or anything. A couple of the bumps were cool, but like I said, most of this bored me, so a below average match for sure. I went 2.25.
Yeah, I went 2 as well. I shut up, though, for the pile driver, that's for sure. But I got a text message in between Saito rolling Funaki back in the ring, and when I put my phone back down after replying, Funaki was back in control. And I was like, what the fuck? He just got pile driven on the floor. So, and that's sort of like, I was like, whatever. Saito's got cool theme music, I'll say that. I like his theme song. Yeah, about 2 stars.
Match 2 in the C block, Kazushi Sakuraba defeated Kotaro Suzuki in 15:02. Just a lot of mat work here. Not a lot. It was very exciting. This is where I'm really trying with the N-1. It was very tough to go from the G1 with crowds straight to this very dry, empty arena mat work. Just didn't do anything for me. And then Kotaro taps out to an armbar virtually right after the 15-minute call. Nothing wrong with this one. Nothing I really liked about it either. So I gave it the exactly average rating of 2.5. There you go.
I was exactly 2.5 as well. I usually like Sakuraba as well.
Me too. Yeah.
I thought he was pretty good in last year's tournament. But yeah, it's so dry. It's such a dry environment.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's this. This is going to be where the rest of the tournament is until the finals, isn't it?
I assume so. Oh no! There's night 5. So there's night 3 and night 4, which is obviously night 3 happened today, and then night 4 is tomorrow. The no fans. Then night 5 is Sunday, September 26th in Korakuen, and you finally get everybody from the block wrestling on one show. So it's an 8-match show, and that'll be in front of fans. And then the finals will also be in front of fans. So.
Okay, because it's not conducive going from G1, even not in even the 2 Oda City shows coming up. You can't watch those before this.
Yeah, it's really tough.
It really kills. Again, as we both like Sakuraba, but there's just nothing he can do here. It's out of his control.
Match number 3 was Masaki Mochizuki defeating Daiki Inaba in 12:39. These two finally do bring a little excitement to this lifeless show at this point. They hit each other pretty hard. They did some moves other than very slow mat wrestling, which again, it's not like I like mat wrestling, but like there is something about really, really slow mat wrestling in these first 2 matches and the complete lack of any atmosphere at all in this dark, empty room with no fans there that just really combines to make it almost unwatchable.
It feels like a training drill. Like it feels like I'm watching wrestlers training. Yeah. And I don't want to watch them train. I want to watch them wrestle.
Unfortunately, with this match that is otherwise quite good, Mochizuki kind of screws up the finish. He takes a moment to set himself after leaving the second turnbuckle with a Sankakageri to the face. It's unfortunate with the finish, but yeah, it just didn't, it was kind of an awkward spot. This was not any kind of blowaway match or anything, but compared to the first 2 matches, it almost came off that way. But I went 3.25. Pretty good. Couldn't go higher than that, especially with the kind of botched finish. But a breath of fresh air after the first 2 for sure.
Yeah, I'm probably around that 3.25, even maybe 3.5, just because you're right. It's so much. It's so much better, or at least more. It had more life in it than the first 2. That it felt probably, if this was anywhere else, it'd probably be maybe a 3, maybe even 3 probably. But this card definitely needed it for sure.
The main event was in the A block. Kaito Kiyomiya defeated Manabu Soya in 25:07. This was great. I mean, this was the match that almost saved the show. Both guys
saved the show, right?
I guess so. You could say that 1 out of 4 matches. But yeah, you could say it saved the show. Both guys go the route here of being louder than usual to try to make up for the total lack of crowd noise. Probably a smart move. I particularly noticed this when Kaito was struggling to make it the ropes during a Soya Boston Crab. He was like really screaming, which I was like, okay, good. You know what you're doing here, trying to make up the lack of any crowd noise. That was like right before the 15-minute call. And this match just had a lot of really nice action throughout. There was a moment where like Soya got dropped on his head with a German suplex just to pop up and hit a very nice spear. That was a highlight. And they end up fighting the top rope where Soya hits a nice power slam off of there for another 2 count just before the 20-minute call. And Kaito, the whole match is basically he's trying to fight from underneath against the bigger Soya, which is like Kaito always excels at that. He's great at being the underdog and fighting from underneath, to his detriment sometimes, as people pointed out during the long title reign that didn't really work. But this let him do what he does best, and he was really quite good here. He finally put Soya down with some nice drop kicks and then an inverted DDT, but Soya just barely kicked out before the 3 count. But then Kaito pretty quickly after that hits the Tiger Suplex hold just as we get the 25-minute call, and that is finally the pin. I thought this was pretty awesome. I went 4 stars flat on it. I guess you could say they're at least giving us 1 awesome match per show, but I didn't think I don't know if this made up for the first 2 matches or anything, or the atmosphere of the show. But maybe just skip to this match, honestly. Maybe you can watch
this. No doubt. Like, don't watch anything else on this card. Like,
yeah, the semi-main event you can watch if you feel like it, but the main event is the only thing you really got to watch.
And I'm lower on the main event than you, just slightly. I went 3.75. Is this the first time Kiyomiya's shown off his new look?
Oh, maybe. Yeah,
with the black hair and the primarily black pants.
I think that's true. Yeah, because they were yelling about the new tights when he came out.
Right. Yeah, I like the look.
Yeah,
but they showed a picture of him, obviously pre-look, and I was like, and his hair didn't look as blonde as I pictured it in my head when I saw the new look. So, but yeah, I like the new look. I think actually Soya was maybe the MVP of this match a little bit. Like I thought
Soya was great.
I thought he played his role like to perfection. Like he wasn't he's not doing the stereotypical great wrestling epic things that we've come to know from the greats of this era. But like his role, it was just perfect, and he allowed, as you said, Kiyomiya to do what he does best. So yeah, really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, I mean, but it's Kiyomiya. What do you expect, really? There's maybe Soy's pretty good too, but I mean, Kiyomiya is probably one of the 3 best wrestlers in this tournament.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, probably. I probably put him number 1, honestly. But
yeah, I mean, he probably is. I like Nakajima just on a personal level more. Mm-hmm. Just because, but that's just my personal preference.
It would be those 2 and Sugera. Those are about the only 3.
Kano as well.
Kano's right there
I like
too.
Kano.
Yeah, I like Kano a lot too, but I put him just below those guys.
Right. Okay.
Vegeta, same thing, but
I'm not super high on Vegeta personally.
And Masato Tanaka too. Actually, I'm forgetting all about him. But
yeah, well, but, I mean, like there is good matches in this tournament, but it's just about cherry picking them, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, there were a few good matches on night 3. I'll give you that. I'll give you the heads up. But there are also a couple of ones that I really didn't like that much.
So I will cover all of that on the Omakase Patreon tomorrow, along with Night 4. So check that out, patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. A link, of course, in the description. So the standings after the first 2 nights, everybody had wrestled 1 match at this point. A block, you have Kaito at 1-0 over 2 points. Sugera and Muto had the draw. They both had 1 point, and Soya, of course, has 0 points. Other blocks are more simple. B block, you have Kendo Kashin and Masaki Mochizuki with the win. Inaba and Kano are both 0-1. C block, you have Masato Tanaka and Sakuraba with the win, and Kotaro Suzuki and Nakajima are both 0-1. And then D block, Fujita and Funaki both have the win, and Saito and Kitamiya are both 0-1. So the winner of each block, if people don't know this, how this works with the 4 blocks, goes to a semifinal. So it's A versus B and C versus D. And then the 2 winners of those matches, of course, face off in the final. So there you go. So we'll get more into Noah, like I said, on the Patreon tomorrow with nights 3 and 4. All right, Harley, anything you want to plug or anything for your wrap?
Not really. Again, my Twitter is on private. There's no. I might see it if you follow it, but I don't really tweet about wrestling, at all. Really, I don't really tweet that much at all. So you don't need to follow me on Twitter. You don't need to do any of that sort of stuff. But do subscribe to the Wrestling Omakase Patreon. That's my plug.
There you go. So the Patreon will be at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. Of course, we'll be covering the G1 and the N-1 for the next 2 weeks before we're back here on the free show with more coverage on October 3rd, the Noah N-1 final and the G1 Night 9. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at Wrestle Omakase. Wrestling would not fit, of course. And I want to thank you as always for listening. And I will see you next time. I'm very tired. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
For the ones going above and beyond. For the ones reaching out, helping out, and lending a hand. For the ones people count on. You can count on Grainger. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. Backed by 24/7 customer support and specialists to help with hard-to-find products. Because you've got everyone's back. We've got yours. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.